everyone, welcome to the show. Tonight I want to take you on a miniature vacation to a place called Summerwind. Summerwind? That sounds luxurious. Oh, you're gonna find it thrilling. Trust me. But before you start buttering sandwiches for your picnic basket, you better make an extra one for a little man we call Satan the Devil. Satan the Devil? Yup. 'Cause this mansion happens to be his weekend party house. Tom, I don't believe in demons and monsters. So if I were a fish, I'd say blub blub to that. On the dark and choppy waters of northern Wisconsin sits a Victorian mansion, built in 1916 as a fishing lodge for wealthy businessman Robert Patterson Lamont, who vacationed there during the summer. One night he heard voices coming from the basement. So he took his pistol and went downstairs to investigate. And he saw a ghost floating around in circles. Horrible ghost. It looked like a skeleton in a white robe. Lamont fired his gun and kept firing as he ran away. He fled the mansion in fear of his life and never returned again, because he was a coward. The grand old house sat empty for many decades after that, until the 1970s, when Arnold and Ginger Henshaw moved into the house with their children. They were immediately besieged by the supernatural. It began when Ginger was working in the kitchen and heard little noises coming from an empty room. When she walked over to look, a shadow with no source of attachment moved across the floor. Later in the kitchen, a window began rattling. Ginger looked over in horror as the window slowly pushed itself open. Yes. That evening, she told her husband Arnold what happened, but he had difficulty picturing it. He asked if she had been cleaning with paint thinner or something with fumes. Well, later that week, Arnold pushed a button in the library and discovered a tiny crawl space leading to a secret room. He sent his small daughter to crawl in there and have a look. And she started screaming when she found a human skeleton. The mansion also had a church organ, and Arnold began playing it in his free time, like a madman. He would set at the keys and play grand concertos like Mephisto. His performances would last well over an hour. A divide began growing between Arnold and Ginger, culminating late one night, when Ginger couldn't even get to sleep because of the incessant and increasingly wild organ music coming from downstairs. She finally shouted, "Arnold, for the children's sake, stop playing that infernal organ." Well, right then Arnold walked out of the bathroom in his pajamas. "I wasn't playing it." Shortly after this incident, Arnold had a manic episode and was committed to a mental treatment center. In the late 1970s, Ginger went into a deep depression and attempted to take her own life. Though thankfully she recovered and went to live with her family. In 1979, Ginger's father, Raymond, took over as ward of Lamont Mansion. His daughter told him every detail of what occurred there, and he, for one, decided to investigate for himself. And before long, he was also seeing shadows dart across empty rooms, slam doors, knocking things over. In a way, he was relieved to know that his daughter wasn't insane after all. At night, Raymond slept with the windows open, and on the soft wind he could hear the faint sound of a woman singing, ever so softly. It was a beautiful melody, barely audible, but night after night, when he would close his eyes and lay motionless, he could just barely hear it. But try as he might, he could never make out the words or remember the tune when he woke. The next morning at the breakfast table, it dawned on him. The woman singing wasn't in English. That day, Raymond went to the county records department and began digging into the past of the Lamont estate. He discovered that the Land O'Lakes area was once home to a group of Sioux Indians, until an Englishman named Jonathan Carver tricked them into signing a piece of paper naming him the new owner, knowing full well that they didn't understand a word he was saying. Well, by doing such a dark and greedy thing, the conniving little man brought a curse down upon himself, and he was thereafter beset by misfortune. Even his ill-gotten gains were eventually stripped away from his heirs when his fraud against the Indians was discovered. And to this day, the silly ghost of John Carver floats around in his pompous robe and wig, searching for the land deed he shall never have. Eventually, the ghost activity became exceedingly angry and violent, and Raymond packed his bags to leave. He stood on the road and looked one last time at the house that had broken his family's hearts and home. He remembered the gentle woman singing in the soft summer nights. He tipped his hat goodbye and named the mansion Summerwind. In 1988, the mansion was struck by lightning and burned inside out. Its charred skeleton still stands as an effigy of a place no one could ever understand or ever forget. You know, growing up, my dad was a Bible salesman. He went door to door, taking the message to people. Well, I remember he always said that there's two people that cut down their enemies with lightning. One is the man upstairs. Number two is another guy. Which one do you think wanted to get rid of Summerwind Mansion? Before you answer, keep in mind, the culprit may have been trying to cover their tracks. I'm still not sure which one it was. Alright, have a good night. We'll see you next time.